When people told their paths with stories, explained their presence with stories, and foretold the future with stories, the best place by the fire was kept for the storyteller. Those are the immortal words of John Hurt, the storyteller, from Jim Henson. Some of you may also remember him as Ollivander from the Harry Potter series. And oh, such a great series I love to watch. Not just Harry Potter, but also Jim Henson's The Storyteller. I just love to just sit there and listen to those stories. And that's one thing that's always been inspiring and wonderful to me, that long ago when our ancestors began to talk and share with each other, they spent their time telling stories. It was long ago before we had television or video games, or even shopping malls, or even the internet. We shared our stories with each other. We would tell our histories. We would learn things from each other. In fact, Homer's Odyssey was told around the fireside by storytellers. It's just amazing how things like that would happen. We would just spend time together, listening to one person, telling our histories and futures. And that's something that's always inspired me ever since I can remember. Whether I was being tucked in by my mom and listening to her tell us stories, I drifted off to sleep, or when I was in school, when we'd have assemblies and they would have the occasional storyteller, I just was fascinated and intrigued and just amazed to listen. They would take me to wonderful worlds I couldn't even imagine, and just to a time to escape and feel joy and inspiration and beauty. And during that time, as I grew to love my knowledge of stories, I would share them with other people. I'd share them with my cousins. We'd stay up late while they would just sit around me while I read from my favorite fairy tale book, or when I would go to the summer schools during the summertime and I would tell stories. I just loved it because when I was in summer school, I had the occasional storyteller telling stories to us. It was so wonderful. So that's why one of my New Year's intentions is to just share my love of stories with people as often as I can, which is why those of you who know my channel saw me telling the story on New Year's Day of the 12 months. And I do wish to apologize. I meant to tell more stories often. It's just, well, some of you probably know earlier this month we had some really cold days. It was windy, snow, and some days were below zero, and even my furnace here wasn't really working too well, and it was so cold. Don't worry, luckily my roommate and I were fine, but at least it was still working. But during those times when the snow was falling and it was so many days, I thought, whew, my goodness, Mother Holle sure is shaking her bedding and blanketing the world with... I'm sorry, what? You don't know who Mother Holle is? Oh, it's one of my favorite stories that I want to share with you today. You see, Frau Holle, or Hulda, is a German goddess for agriculture and women's crafts, and she is celebrated with the Midwinter Festival. In fact, there's also a children's story where it talks around during Yuletide, where she comes out from hibernation and she shares her beauty of winter for everyone. You see, she lives at the bottom of a well and first taught women the craft of spinning flax. Or, as some of you know, from a spinning wheel like in Sleeping Beauty, but that's a story for another day. You see, Holle or Hulda is also associated with witchcraft, and leads an army of witches riding on distaffs. Oh, although don't you worry, dear children and darlings who are listening, Mother Holle is not an evil witch. She's actually a very kind and good one. You see, it's a Yuletide story associated with an ancient Norse goddess. She sleeps all year long, waking only to make sure children are happy and healthy and festive during the longest and coldest nights of the year. And you see, she's also has a very ancient origins indeed. She's a weaver goddess, a spinner of fate, karma. She's very much associated with the time of Yule, as I mentioned before, with home and the hearth, and especially during winter. You see, well, actually, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I don't want to give too many spoilers away. So stay tuned and watch in my next video where I explain the story of Mother Holle, which I originally heard in the wonderful collective works of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. That was written in 1812. So, all of you sit back and relax and prepare for the story of Mother Holle by Serenity Rose, the storyteller.